Hey. Welcome to the Superb Owl version of the Dr. Luke Explores the Golden Bough show, the abridged version. We're looking at chapter 34 today, which is Attis as a god of vegetation. Here we have the illustrious Jordan, our resident cheerleader, myself as representing my favorite team, and Osik on location from the Superb Owl. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you for
you.
having me.
Yeah. Does anybody have a prediction for tonight's game? I have a feeling the symbolism that we explore is going to be palpable and relevant to a prediction. It's the Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots.
Okay, thank you, because I was like, I don't even remember who's in it. Okay, interesting. We have the indigenous versus the uh
The
non-indigenous.
occupiers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is an element to that. I think just from a pure athletic performance standpoint, I suspect that the Seattle Seahawks are the superior team, given the path to the Super Bowl. I think this is the common knowledge that's percolating and circulating amongst the pundits out there. But I can't help but think that whatever the outcome will be will favor the New England Patriots, given the symbolism that I'm seeing. I have not followed the football season closely because the Commanders/Redskins were eliminated very early this year, unlike last year. But given some of the topics that we talk about, specifically the resurrection of the Adonis and Attis figure, and potentially connected to the United States figurehead, something about the Patriots is whispering in my ear. Though the Seahawks should win.
Well, yeah, I feel like in the past, the football team's more associated with the federal government or the president thematically tends to kind of coalesce with the larger themes we see playing out for the administration. So
That's right.
super
We
interesting.
Yeah, the last time, right after 9/11, of course, the New England Patriots won and began their dynastic streak. And now we're seeing with the release of the Epstein files and the normalization of the QAnon material. I just see in my mind the headline "Patriots in control." But
Well, and we've already forgotten the whole Calvin Klein event is what I'm gonna call it because I think that's
mm,
funny.
yeah, he was a great CK was a major patriot. So,
Calvin
but
Klein.
yeah. There's a lot of ways that we could read this. I don't really know. In years past, I have followed the symbolism very closely with the NFL and have been able to have. I think I probably have like about an 80% success rate. I can't say that I've dug into the research and have an informed opinion, but just that's what my instincts tell me. I could be wrong though. Okay. Well, so we're shifting away, although we can't escape it. We're going to be talking about Attis and Cybele here. In case you did not know, that's how you pronounce the name of this mother goddess that is going to preoccupy us primarily today. I have it up there at the top right hand corner, the AI pronunciation, and supposedly the correct pronunciation. But we're going to dip into Isis and Osiris research a little bit. We're going to tie up some loose ends from Adonis, Persephone, and Aphrodite. So, and we're only going to get through maybe a third of the material today. It's not a particularly long chapter 34, but there were so many details that led to productive side quests that I felt like, you know what, this is going to probably take at least 2 weeks for us to get through. And so we're just going to go slowly through the material, and if something comes up, we're going to address it. And like I do with every episode here, I talk a little bit about some of the images that are on the title card, which will weave themselves into the conversation as we go along. I had a bit of an epiphany about the connection between the Artemis mission and the Titanic. As anyone who's been following along for the past month or so, I see a lot of negative symbolism surrounding the Artemis mission, which has led me to conclude it's likely not going to happen. And I think I found another data point that confirms that. Not to mention, we were going to get a little bit of a superb owl moon ritual today. It was supposed to go around the moon, go deeper into space than anyone's ever gone. And wouldn't you know, it got delayed again. So I'm no one's really shocked about this. Um, Also, we are going to look at some of the other goddess and mother goddesses that constellate around Jackie Kennedy. Um, I want we've been looking at the flowers that were associated with JFK and Marilyn Monroe, but we're going to take a deeper look of at the significance of the lily and a particular type of Aphrodite figure and Persephone as it relates to Jackie. We're also going to talk a little bit about how, wouldn't you know, Jackie is connected to Michael Jackson. This stems from her time as a book editor in New York. She was actually influential, or she wrote the foreword for Michael Jackson's Moonwalk, and so there's a very interesting story with that. And I think we need to consider the symbolism, considering that she was married to the man that got us to embark on the mission to the moon. Also, I want to look at her 1962 trip to um, the to Mexico and the Basilica of Guadalupe, the Lady of Guadalupe visit, and how that associates her with the Virgin Mary iconography, and her relationship to Isis, the Egyptian goddess. So those are going to be some of the subjects we talk about today. And given that there is so much vegetation worship and pine tree worship associated with Attis, I couldn't help but wonder about Christmas trees and what the connection might be to our modern Christian practices in America and throughout the Western world. Lastly, I don't know how long these things were in production, but I find it very interesting that as we train our focus on all these subjects, I believe on February 12th, there is going to be a JFK Jr. movie miniseries on FX called Love Story. It seems to kind of just emerged out of nowhere. I had no idea that was going on. And this morning, I woke up to news of a Michael Jackson biopic called that's largely going to track his early pop career, including the moonwalk era. So something is brewing here. Something is brewing. So those, if any of those topics interests you, stick around. We're going to be all over the place today. I wouldn't say today's going to be neat and tidy. We'll be jumping around to all these different subjects. So I'll pause there and let the peanut gallery say a few words.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing. So, for the
Sure.
one language nerd who's watching this, it is also that the people living there, they produced this Kabele, like they produced Caesar as Kaiser, but it was lost in translation. I'm just saying, I just learned about this yesterday. I'm just showing off.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing is that this is interesting that the namesake of a Ryan O'Neal movie that made him a star is being used for a JFK Jr. biopic.
That is very interesting. It had dawned on me, but I hadn't connected it all together. Do you want to elaborate on why that connection is interesting? I anyone who doesn't know, it's going to connect back to our shared interest in Kubrick.
Yeah, I mean, the way he was, like Ryan O'Neal was a star, he was good looking, he was a jock, and in the movie also he plays a jock. So I don't know. I mean, there's a there's something of a college boy feel to it. The JFK Jr. thing that he always looked like a college boy. He did not look like someone who had graduated college. So maybe that could be there. I'm not sure what to say. I just thought like love story, and then Ryan. It just connected to me that Ryan Murphy is directing. So Ryan O'Neal. So that was interesting. Uh,
Yeah, just to draw that a little bit tighter for those that do not know, the success that Ryan O'Neal had in Love Story and a film that came out just before Barry Lyndon called Paper Moon. I don't know if you've seen it. I find that so intriguing that he was in a movie called Paper Moon and then was in a Kubrick movie. These were the films that set him up to get the lead in Barry Lyndon, which
yeah,
he's excellent at. Yeah. It,
yeah.
I can make the case that Barry Lyndon is like my favorite Kubrick movie.
Please do someday. That's a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Jordan, what
Mm.
about you? Do you have any initial responses to some of the subjects we're going to talk about today?
Ooh, I'm excited to uh, Sibley, is that it?
Sibylle. That's what I think.
Okay.
Sibylle.
I'm excited to get into that. Part of her myth is involves a stone, and some people in some retellings, it's a meteor. So we have his connection back to space, which is fun.
Yep.
But yeah,
I maybe we'll get to that today.
oh, maybe
I
not.
do I do have a slide prepared for it. I mean, they say it's a black meteorite, and of
Mhm.
course, the first thing that comes to mind is Mecca. So we'll see
Yes.
whether or not there is some connection between Cybele and Mecca. I'll probably have to go deeper into that next time. I should point out here, as I was putting on my costume for today's Superb Owl edition, I chose the Bible verses, Revelation 17, 3 through 5, and 9. And the reason for that is that I found that there are some theologians that actually believe that the Whore of Babylon, as it is described there in Revelation 17, is is a response to and a critique of all the different mother goddess mystery religions that John was familiar with. And you start to think about the imagery of the Whore of Babylon, and you think about what we learned about Cybele in this chapter. She is a goddess of taming and domesticating animals. That's why she's frequently seen with lions, right? So there's the taming of the beast, the woman who rides the beast. She has a cup that was often used in initiation ceremonies, which is also talked about with the Whore of Babylon, right? Like the drinking of the profane cup. And she is she is draped in scarlet robes, which some individuals think is a connection to the Gali, the androgynous priesthood of this particular cult. And oh, there was one more. There was one more. I forget, but it sounded like it sounded pretty convincing. I can check my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting something.
A scarlet
So
robe.
that is what yeah, that's what I said in terms of the relation to the Gali. The
Hmm.
yeah, the
I
golden
also
cup.
could picture the
Her
red
yeah,
cloak in
yeah,
Iceberg shirt.
interesting. Yeah, that might be relevant too. The other thing is her crown. The it's called a mural crown. You can see it over there on the right hand side. I look. We'll talk more about the specifics of it, but it's like a fortress, and this might be a reference to the seven hills, the woman on the beast and the seven hills. So I feel like that's a pretty good match. I'm not going to belabor the point too long. It's especially interesting, and I think maybe next time I'll go deeper into it. When you go through this chapter that Frazier's put together, is that the subtext to it all so far is like, hey, look, this is just Christianity. Like there's talks about meals that involve bread. There's a resurrection theme. There's there, you know, Attis is a shepherd. There's this great mother archetype that's involved. Can't you see where Christianity came from? So I imagine maybe next time I'll do like a side by side comparison to go deeper into those things. But it's kind of easy to see what Frazer is intimating here, that Christianity is, in his view, nothing special and just a reiteration of these previous cults. Although um, the little bit of research I've done into it is that a lot of the discoveries about Attis were made after the establishment of Christianity. So there is some question about who is copying who. Of course, people like Frazer will have a particular ideology that they're pushing. And it's not necessarily a wrong one. Even if it's the case that all these different dying and rising gods with virgin births and things like that happened before Jesus, it doesn't make the virgin birth of Jesus null and void. It could be the case. We could just entertain this idea, and I'm not necessarily trying to get into deep theology on this show, but that they were sort of forerunners of the thing to come. That perhaps a certain idea was planted in the minds of diverse people so that when the real thing showed up, it wouldn't be so alien and unfamiliar to them. Of course, that then creates the problem of trying to get them to relinquish the thing that they were inculcated with to adopt the new thing. So that is how some people have responded to this persistence of these archetypal structures.
I think looking at historical Christianity could shed some light on it, like the society in which like Jesus grew. I mean, the way he conducts himself, what is written about him, and what those people consider taboos, what they don't consider taboos. That could indicate to how Christianity is different from their society that it's being birthed in. So I think of Christianity as a very vulnerable religion when it first started. So it's like it's a reaction to every kind of perversion that's happening around them, and any kind of some sort of false control or some false hierarchy. That's how I imagine it being birthed, and like the way Jesus conducts himself. So that may shed some
Yeah,
light
for
on it.
sure.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, something that I think helped me contextualize my understanding of the Bible a lot reading this particular chapter by Frazer is there are some very unusual passages in the New Testament that talk about eunuchs, and it actually is a persistent theme throughout the entire Bible. And you're like, what? I think when I first encountered those passages as a younger person, I was like, what is going on here? Like, why is this even there? And I think the Fraser is helping me connect some dots about why there were these androgynous third sexes in ancient religion. And I think, I mean, from what I understand, and I haven't gone into it, Osik, maybe you can speak more to it, but there, even in the Hindu religion, aren't there like androgynous transsexual classes of people? I forget their name
Yes,
at the
yes,
moment, but
they are transgenders. I think the eunuchs, like as a normal as a cis male, I find them like very scary. It's like they dress up like a woman and they're like so strong. So it's like they come at you and they ask you for money, like they bless you, oh you will be a good person, you'll grow great. Then they'll ask money from you. So you give them regardless, just so they leave you alone. They come in trains and buses.
it's it crosses some wires, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of material to cover today. I mean, Jordan, should we progress to the first slide? Okay. So I'm going to build up to some of the content, tie up some loose ends from last time, and talk about some synchronicities that are going on. This first one, as I was preparing for this, I had in mind this continuous theme that we've been addressing is the fact that Trump seems to be rewriting a lot of the Kennedy legacy. And we've speculated about why this is happening. We've talked about how he affixed his name to the Kennedy Center, the paving over of the Rose Garden, and what that means. And one that I had sort of forgotten about, this happened during the first term, but is still a persistent issue, is that Trump wants to change the color of Air Force One. Now, Air Force One has this baby blue color scheme, and this was established by Jackie back during the early '60s, and it's just been a matter, of course, to keep this. The Biden administration canceled the plans to just have it red, white, and blue, and have it be a more authoritative American plane. But Trump has not taken this off the table, and it very well could be repainted here. And I find that interesting, not only because very early on in the first Trump administration, Melania clearly is channeling Jackie here. You can see many of her outfits are inspired by Jackie O. So I think we have to think about what is going on here. Are we seeing some sort of mythic dethronement of the cycle that JFK was a part of, and it's happening very gradually, so much so that we don't really understand what is going on here. A lot of liberals are picking up on this and saying, "Oh, look, this is just Trump's crazy ego, where he just can't stand for someone to be a bigger president than he is and have a greater legacy and mythic memorial." But that it's hard to square that for several different reasons. Um, given the esteem that Melania has for Jackie O, also, if we were to believe what we're told, Donald Trump was a very close friend of JFK Jr. So, how are we to understand this? I think something that is helping me to understand this is that we may actually be looking at a recursion or recycling of the Adonis, Persephone, Aphrodite myth. And this isn't tight. I don't exactly know how to argue well that this stuff is happening when I'm talking about dream logic of our reality. But um, one of the things I think we need to take into consideration is that there were actually different permutations of Aphrodite. We'll talk a little bit later about Aphrodite Urania or Venus Urania, which is more of a radiant solar aspect of Aphrodite, which I'm going to argue elsewhere we could probably more properly attach to Marilyn Monroe. But there was this more local version of the goddess who was named Aphrodite Melanius. Well, that sounds very close to Melania. And in fact, etymologically, the two are connected. And I think Jackie can be seen as Aphrodite Melanius because in the vacuum of Monroe passing away and then also having the Adonis and Aphrodite symbolism percolate up in Dallas with the blood on the roses, I think we can say that for temporarily she was the dark aspect of Aphrodite, and then I've argued elsewhere also Persephone being dragged off to Hades in the chariot that is the limo. And so if that is the case, and some QAnon people have posited this, that really Donald Trump is an extension of JFK Jr., and they say JFK Jr. might still be alive. Are we looking at this reconstellation of the Aphrodite and the Adonis mythology if JFK Jr. and Donald Trump are in some way kind of some like super organism or something like that, or like some sort of archetypal merger? So, and here's a quote from the first term where Trump was trying to brand Melania as the new Jackie O. Melania T is the new Jackie O. By the way, we getting a little text from our friend Rory. Oh, okay. She won't be joining us today. She got called into work. So it's just going to be the three of us. So I'll pause there and let you guys commentate.
Jordan could go first.
Sure. It overlays with a lot of the other things you've called out in previous lectures with the Kennedy Center rebranding. We're seeing a lot of these mythic cycles repeat. Again, to what end? Are we creating a new religion for the culture? Are we revitalizing an old one? Still kind of seeing it play out, what exactly it's going to be. But the fashion angle is super fun to me and something I've been looking at over the past few years quite a bit.
Well, what do you think? Do you think we're looking at mythic dethronement here? Are we seeing a revitalization of the Aphrodite Adonis cult? What do you guys think we're looking at here? And why would, if that's the case, gosh, it's so crazy to talk about this stuff. Why would there be the tacit endorsement from say JFK Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, I could speculate. I don't know that you'd want me to, but
Oh no, I hate speculation. Clearly, I'm not doing any of it.
well, to speculate about the actual intention is quite different than to analyze the symbols in front of you. I think they're kind of different levels of analysis. But that's the question you just asked is exactly what I'm not totally clear on. Is this a whole net new religion? Or you've seen this same solar religion get recycled over and over and over again, but it always has a new little twist is the wrong word. It has a new tone to it. It has a new skin to it. It's almost the same video game with a different skin put
Yeah.
on and maybe slightly different mechanics or
This might just be the pattern of the simulation.
yeah, it does seem pretty intentional though. Like putting the Trump name on the Kennedy Center seems pretty deliberate. So I don't think it's totally just realitying. I think there is a little bit of human participation here. What I'm curious about is what are the exact intentions of the human participants? But you could step back and take sort of a, I'm forgetting the right word, but a analytical, logical, biological approach to this and just say it's the solar myth being played out again, and everybody's just unwittingly recreating it once more.
I do need to just add a little bit of caveat. I don't know if it's entirely appropriate to say that specifically with Adonis and Aphrodite and Persephone, that we're talking about a solar myth, although there are some instances where Adonis evolves into kind of a solar deity. I mean, I think it's most appropriate to talk about it in terms of a vegetation cycle.
What is that tied to?
Yeah, of course, which is relevant.
Yeah,
I'm just striving for clarity here.
sure. Many people, I'm not saying I'm arguing this. Many people would argue the solar myth is the root myth that all these
Yeah.
myths get stacked on top of.
Right. So then it's a question of priority. And I think the confusion from this goes that even before we knew what we were talking about, we were looking at all these solar characteristics that were associated with JFK. Clearly, the Apollo missions, Odysseus being a solar figure, Christ being a solar figure, according to some. So then the question becomes, how do we have this both ways? How do we have a solar mythology mixed with a vegetation mythology? How do these things occur simultaneously?
To me,
And
they're very
that's
compatible.
I
It's
think they are too, but I'm
it's
still
more
working it out.
layers, it's dimensions to a similar
Sure.
pattern.
I agree with that. Sorry to nitpick. I have to be clear, at least about what
Yeah, no
Frazer is,
problem.
but what it means archetypally is something different. Osik, do you want to weigh
Well,
in on this at all?
Let
Or
Jordan complete. Just
yeah,
uh,
Jordan, if you want to
she'll-
I'm
finish.
just gonna say Fraser is also obsessed with the solar myth. Like, that may not be the exact thing he's talking about in this chapter. We may be fixated on the vegetation aspect of it, but let's be real. Like, that is a big part of the Golden Bough
Sure,
is the solar cycle. And there's
sure.
such a dominance of ritual that happens in the vegetation cultures with the solstices also, which I think plays into
Yeah,
that.
that's fair. That's totally fair. Especially, I don't know how deep we'll go into the Hilaria festival that is associated with um, Attis today. But I mean, for the day of mourning, the day where the tree is cut down is March 22nd or 3/22, which is going to make, I know, Ostic go crazy from a gematria perspective because it seems to have a yellow skull and bones connection. But I'll say, yeah, exactly. But I've got some. I don't know how deep we'll get into that, but something I've no. We'll get to it here in a second. Ostic, do you want to say anything else about this before we go further?
just I'm thinking of, like, what do we think about what comes to our mind when we say the word US president? So I don't think there's any president that has, like, a name so kind of without blemishes as President Kennedy. And like he's constantly associating himself with him. And like I think that he's himself studied that what happened after Kennedy's assassination, like what legacy it created. It created like literally 10 years of space programs and everything. It created 10 years worth of like concrete mythology, and then after that speculations about who murdered him, and like it stays in the unconscious of the whole country, of the whole nation. So I think he sees that this is the person who is having an impact on the timeline. So what do I do so I can have a similar impact? I don't want to be like some Gerald Ford or something, like some nobody even remembers me anymore. So I think Trump, like being some sort of an driven by his ego or something, he is constantly placing himself in situations that accentuate you know, his impact on the world. So that's why he acts in such a way. That's why he talks in such a direct manner. I think he wants to get to he wants to distinguish himself. I think he is very. And the other thing is that baby blue, and interesting that baby blue is the color of the aircraft of United States of America. That I think this is Air Force One, right? So the baby
Yeah.
blue was also the color that the twins wear. So that wasn't. I thought, okay, in The
Yeah, that's
Shining, they're
right.
wearing
That's
the baby blue.
right.
I mean, they could have worn
That's
any color,
right.
but
I haven't
I,
thought about the color. That's a great observation. That's great. I love it.
uh,
Okay.
yeah,
We
just that.
There's so much to talk about. We're like a half hour in, so we probably should just kind of
Okay.
I know. But I know how many slides there are. Okay. So I thought this was super interesting. I'll be kind of quick about it. Um, I think I thought this at the time. I rediscovered it going back and preparing for this today. A recent dive to the Titanic in 2024 revealed that there is a nearly perfectly intact version of the Diana Versailles statue on the Titanic. Okay. Um, And this is they discovered this simultaneously as they realized that the bow or the bow of the ship is disintegrating. And so I was like, this is very strange, especially since Diana is Artemis and the Artemis program is struggling to get up off the ground. We had another delay this week. They're saying they're going to do this mission in March now. We'll see. Um, but I looked a little bit closer at this Diana statue, and it's a perfect replica of the original. Now, the thing about the original is that Diana's bow is missing. There's only really the handle. That part broke off. It's not like they went and made the replica and put the bow back. It's a replica of an already damaged Diana statue. And so in my mind, what's really being communicated here from the collective unconscious or God, as I am apt to call the collective unconscious, I don't really necessarily see these things as purely psychological. I see reality as being primarily consciousness, primarily in the mind of God. I guess I've adopted a bit of what I call panentheism, where God interpenetrates reality but is apart from it. What I'm seeing here is the Titanic is the most colossal failure in like commercial maritime history, right? And the Artemis statue is at the bottom of the ocean in this wreck of this Titan. Simultaneously, we have this Titanic rocket that is aiming to go to the moon, Diana or Artemis, right? And it's struggling. And to me, in addition to everything else we've talked about, like the Orion capsule and the ominous mythology that surrounds the Artemis Orion mission, where or the Artemis Orion story, where Artemis inadvertently ends up killing her lover, I would take this as another data point from reality itself that this isn't going to happen. That Diana is sunk. That Diana is in the wreckage. Now, maybe you could interpret this another way, where like maybe they'll go down there and try to recover this statue or something like that and bring it to the surface, and maybe we can have a happy little story here. But when I look at the archetypal symbolism of this reality, I do not think this bodes well for the Artemis mission.
Yeah, you've stated that multiple times. So just another event in the line of your
Mhm.
conjecture. I mean, it's pretty interesting that the Titanic. I,
Yeah,
I mean, it's even fitting that the Titanic and this mission would be connected in some way, because they're both such a Titanic is such a like a blot on the unconscious. Like whenever children they are told this story again and again. Oh, the Titanic. These many people died. I was 5 years old being told this story. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about Titanic and Kubrick movies as well. If you want to go on about it.
yeah. Well, the Titanic and The Shining, right?
Yeah, sure. The Lloyd, the insurers he talked about. You do you know about it? So, like, could I say?
Yeah, I know what
Okay,
you're talking
so
about. I think.
the Titanic, the interior of the Titanic looks exactly like the ballroom that was photographed, like at the end, or like the one Jack attends. And the ship was insured by a company called Lloyd's, and he talks to Lloyd again and again, and like he's been given wrong information by Lloyd. And yeah, so a lot of people talk about it being connected to the Federal Reserve, the movie Shining, and people say that the Federal Reserve was found because these many people were killed off in the Titanic. So yeah, those things. I mean, the Nazis even made a movie about it. Like, so that was interesting. Like, the Nazis made movies
They
about
made a movie
Titanic.
about it?
Yeah, you
I've
should
never
watch
heard
it.
about the Nazi Titanic movie. What's it called?
It's called the Titanic, I think. I'll send it. It was made in 1943, and like the director was killed. He was pulled off the film and then shot in a room, and said suicide. Oh, so that was.
What?
I mean, yeah, Kubrick's father-in-law, he was in with all these people, so that was pretty
Oh, I
interesting.
know.
Yeah,
Oh, I know. What those Thanksgiving dinners must have been like.
yeah, this one. He made him confess on his deathbed, Kubrick. He said, "You have to tell me now. You knew what you were doing." And he said, "Okay, yeah, I do." And Kubrick, he felt say, "Yeah, that's true."
Yeah. Oh, is that true?
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
know about the.
Vivian
I don't know
Vivian said it in an
was
interview.
what was I forget the name is I'm struggling
Viet
to come up with
Harlan.
his father. Viet Harlan, that's right. And so what was there was a deathbed exchange between Viet Harlan and Kubrick?
Yeah,
Tell me,
Kubrick.
I don't know anything about this. That seems like a big deal.
No, he simply interrogated it about like, what did you know what was happening in the concentration camps and all that. He wanted to know like if he knew what he was contributing to. Like when he made that movie called Jesus, it was about the
Yeah.
anti-Semitic movie and all that. So he interrogated him, and I think Viet Harlan accepted that yeah he knew about it, but he had to feed his family. He was very kind of like a Chad person, like like Emmanuel Macron. He's wearing dark glasses, doesn't care if people accuse him of bad doings. I don't care. I'll keep making movies. Like he went about the post-war years as if nothing had happened. So that what irked people, because a lot of people are very apologetic about it. I mean, okay, they also got promoted to the UN Security Council and
Yeah.
all that. So I don't know what to say about the Germans, but like Kubrick had this exchange with him, and then Vivian Kubrick was telling this in an interview with some guy. I saw it
I'll,
three,
I'll
four
have
years
to.
ago. I'll
I'll
have
have
to
to.
find it. It was on Rumble. It was a live stream. Vivian Kubrick was there, and then she said, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." She also said a lot of things about him as a father, like what she was doing. I don't think it's very important. It's just a detail. But yeah, Titanic
Oh,
is a colossal
devil's in
myth.
the details, my friend. Devil's in the details. All right. Shall we proceed? Okay. Something briefly I wanted to talk about here, and this is sort of a passing aside. Um, the story, something that I've come to view I've come to view two things that I'm becoming increasingly convinced, given my engagement with the Gilmore Girls, that I'm dead, right? And I'm in some sort of purgatorial containment simulation, which is a strange thing to say. But at the same time, it's been tremendously helpful to study the Golden Bough. And the Golden Bough from the Aeneid, right? I don't think we've gone too deep into what the Golden Bough actually did for Aeneas during his trip into the underworld. It kind of functioned as a passport, a technology. It was even sentient to some degree. And what I find kind of ironic about this, and I don't know if Frazer made these connections. I don't think he did, because Frazer was committed to a secular rationalist perspective, right? He thought what he was doing was ultimately dethroning the last vestiges of magic and religion in our world, and showing that it was all sort of coming from these fertility cults, these vegetation rituals, and these dying and rising gods. And ultimately, like we'll see with the Attis chapter, is that the implication here is that Jesus is just another iteration of that. What I find kind of interesting is that it's actually making my world more magical, not less. That the text itself is in some way becoming like Aeneas's golden bough in a very real sense, especially if there's some notion here that we're in a simulation with repetitive patterns, whatever magic may be. So that's the long and the short of the thing that I wanted to point out here is that there's something paradox. Of course, it's not just me, right? Young picked up on Frazer's The Golden Bough and used it largely to articulate his archetypal theory, which, whether Young wants to say this or not, is deeply committed to the magical. So it actually had, you could argue that its impact promulgated magic, not stomped it out. So that's all I have to say about that.
Um, if I may, I just feel
Yes.
the same way about reading Young. It's like I don't take everything he says at face value, but like if I've been through it, if I've been through the text, it it touches some parts of my psyche that makes me more receptive to the reality around me. It's the way. It's like when I was, even if I read any, like the book that we discussed 2 episodes ago about alchemy, that when I asked you which book are you referencing. So when I read that book, it also felt the same way. It's like it's in the doing. It's like working out. You cannot just sit back and think. If you're worked out, you know what you've been through, you feel it in your muscles, and become stronger in a way. So I think of these books and like these revelations and these mythologies that are playing inside us. It is like it's something that you have to go through. It's like you have to live them, you have to stay with them. So yeah, I mean, I don't yeah, I think I'm saying something in the ballpark of what you meant. It's like you have to live these things, like pluck the golden bough, something.
I will say too, and I know Jordan's going to have a lot to say about magic, so I'm just going to get this in real quick because I know she's got a lot to say. But it's ironic that Frazer names it the Golden Bough, right? So it's like he's snatching the Golden Bough and becoming the king, right? He's becoming the king of the wood. He's got the knowledge, but then it's going to be snatched by Young, and Young is going to be the king for a while, right? And I'm like, when I'm sort of working through this theory of my own, one that like I guess Young was too afraid to articulate because he didn't want to do metaphysics or philosophy. I'm wondering if I'm snatching the golden bough myself, and it's like this, and then someone will snatch it from me, perhaps Ostick. But there is this like struggle for the golden bough and its meaning, its interpretation for reality itself. I find that to be interesting. So Jordan, I threw the words magic around there, so I imagine you've got a lot to say about what we're talking about here.
Oh, well, I do think this very process is a passage in our own way. Like creating these presentations for you is changing you.
It is.
And as you change, the reality around you changes. It's very fascinating to watch unfold. I do think the more I get into the Null book on Young, the more clear it is that he's not saying the things, but he's attributing them to scientific processes or clinical work or putting it into a package that may be more acceptable. And all of that is super fascinating in general. Like, it's this Trojan horse for this folk magic that has infiltrated and taken over Western culture at minimum. And it's not hidden, the roots of it. It's not hidden that a lot of this is covered in the Golden Bough or in Wagner or these other places. It's the information is there, but it is very fascinating. And the more we learn the symbolic language, the more we're seeing other people who are speaking it who we did not know were speaking it before.
Yeah.
A sort of
Oh,
trite example, maybe trite's not the right word, but it's not so metaphysical necessarily, but you pointed out to me because I'm not familiar with any of the Q stuff, and you were saying, "Oh, well, Melania is using the format of a Q
yeah.
post."
Yeah, that's we just had the Melania movie, and because I'm not like some QAnon person, but I'm familiar with all the material.
Right.
And when she's doing the publicity for the QAnon stuff or for the Melania movie on Twitter, she's using the same cadences and symbols and things like that that are on the Q posts. And she's
Yeah.
long been speculated to be part of it. So I'd like to see the Melania movie because I expect that there's going to be a lot of Q um Q symbols in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird, like, the more we learn this language, the more clear either God, reality, or other people are speaking it, and we just had no idea.
No.
And in a way, that's a magic that's being done on us subconsciously. Also, because you kind of talk about a lot how the subconscious is more primed to accept different stories or narratives or ideas. But being able to recognize it on a conscious level, I do think is a really big deal and a really important one for people who wants to be free and independent and not just plugged in to whatever movie the control grid wants us to be plugged into.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. We're finally going to get into some, so that's kind of the introduction here. We're going to get into some of the the Attis material. This is Attis from Ostia. This is a pretty interesting photograph that I've covered up here with this chart to go over some of the aspects of Attis that really I think are going to preoccupy us for the rest of this presentation, because the stuff that connects to Christianity is that's going to require a whole separate thing. But like I've said earlier, this is a vegetation deity that is really just another name for Adonis, right? And in this case, uh, uh, Attis is coming from Phrygia. And in a moment, we'll look what Phrygia is, because I think there's like a little bit of a pun there going on that I shared with Jordan last night. I want to see what Attis, Osik thinks about it when I share it. And he's in different tellings of this story, right? He's the beloved or the son of Cybele, who is the great mother, fertility goddess of Phrygia. He is birthed via a virgin, either in the case of an almond or a pomegranate, and the tree fruit as a generative principle. There are different tellings of this. Sometimes he is killed by a boar, just like Adonis was. And that's why there are going to be prohibitions against eating pork, which is interesting. We'll have to think about, that, well, why there are those prohibitions against that in the Bible as well. Specifically, we've looked at the synchronicities between the Bay of Pigs invasion and the pigs that were cast out, or the demons that were cast out of the pigs and that went over the cliff, and how those seem to line up also with the Adonis and JFK stories. But generally, he dies via self-castration. He unmans himself, as Frazer likes to say, and he does this underneath a pine where his blood spills out, and he is turned into a pine tree and also a grove of violets. And this is used to explain these androgynous transgender priest class. They do this because they're using imitative magic for the resurrection of the vegetation, and they're imitating their god Attis. So one of the things that I thought was interesting, I just included it in the slide because I didn't want to forget about it, and I don't think we'll talk too much about the festival structure, but his death and resurrection are largely celebrated this festival called Hilaria that occurs during March. It depends on when you want to start counting it, but it starts in late March, or the third week in March. And on March 22nd, that is the day of mourning when the tree is cut down. Something I thought was interesting is that I was like trying to line this up, and I have a slide later on where it looks at Thanksgiving and compares it to Hilaria, and there are a lot of similarities between Thanksgiving and Hilaria. But the Hilaria happens in the spring pretty much. It's more associated with, if we're going to say it's associated with anything, it'd be associated with Easter. But the JFK assassination happens during the harvest time. And so I got to thinking about the dates. So if the tree is cut down on 3/22, there is some symmetry that JFK is cut down on 11/22. There is like an echo, a stutter, this 22. And then I was like, oh, 22, we've seen this 22 before. And 22 is also the day that the 1964 World's Fair opened. And that kind of maps closer to the springtime ritual of the Attis death and resurrection story. What's interesting is that JFK was actually able to do the groundbreaking ceremony before he was killed in 63. He did the groundbreaking ceremony at the like USA Pavilion in Corona, Flushing, Queens, although he obviously was not able to attend it since it opened on 4/22/64. But as we talked about last week, there seems to be this alchemical playground aspect to the 1964 World's Fair for all the reasons that I spelled out in the previous two podcasts. I mean, the most obvious one that it happens in Corona, Flushing, Queens, right? We have solar imagery, we have fountain imagery, and we have lunar queen imagery in those three words that seem to hint at the mercurial fountain. So we do have this sequence of 3/22s. Now, this could be just kind of this random number pattern seeking, but the pervasive nature of that 22 with the Attis ritual and JFK and the World's Fair has got my attention. What about you guys?
Um, I mean, this ritual ties in well with the Adonis ritual. It's like a it's like a more literalized version of it. Like people are actually acting out and like castrating themselves. So, but I read about it in that in the sense that it was not a prominent, Sibyl worship, like Sibylle worship was seen as a fringe thing during the times of when it was practiced. But like they were persecuted in the same way. It's like they had secret societies of Sibyl worshippers. That's what I wanted to say. That like perked my ears or something. And yeah, I mean, it's like a very strange thing. And the fact that people are surround like a queen, a fertile queen is like the mother, and they are surrounded by eunuchs is very weird. It's like, again, this is, if she's a mother, you cannot, uh, make love to her or something. But like, that's why it's like you're forced. It's like you are so mad in devotion, and for that I have to like cut yourself because it cannot transfer to those other sort of taboos, you know. So I thought that was also playing into it. Like, I see, it's like, I don't know, the society is set up in such a way that a lot of time women are surrounded by eunuchs or something. It's like
Yeah, it
whatever.
is hard to it is hard to cognize. Apparently, the reason why the galley castrate themselves to begin with is that there's a divine madness that is sent upon them. I have a slide where we look at all the different reasons for why they go mad and castrate themselves. A lot of this has stems from jealousy. Apparently, Attis like started to take a mortal woman, and she drove Attis insane, and that's why they do the imitative magic.
This adds a
Yeah.
layer to the Begonia movie that I wasn't thinking too deeply about, but now seems pretty obvious.
Go on.
Well, the self-chemical castration.
Which movie are you talking about?
Begonia.
Oh, Begonia. I'm sorry. I thought you said Goya.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, the Begonia, which was a great
Uh-huh.
film. Which a great film.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there
Oh,
that
yes, there is.
would warrant rewatches. There's so many things to take in. So,
For
I don't
sure.
feel like particularly like, oh, I have to analyze this film top to bottom, but I think you could. And
Oh, some
the
people have, right?
yeah,
Especially for a lot of people have interpreted it as a disclosure of flat Earth.
there's that. There's all sorts of things happening, some cosmological, some yeah, there's a lot there. I think it really is tackling every dimension of reality personally, or at least attempting to do so. Obviously, there's some dimensions we may not have insight into, but it seems to be trying to address multiple levels of what's happening. But yeah, the castration is a really big focal point, and
That's a
they
that's a
talk
good
about it
point.
more as this ability to be self-possessed instead of possessed by the goddess figure that they are
That's
attempting to
interesting.
walk away
That's
from.
int that's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a lot there.
Like, just to keep your minds running, I wanted to ask, like, what other, the thing that's happening to these people who are castrating themselves, they are kind of like being brainwashed, is what I see. It's like they're kind of like so mad in devotion that they're brainwashed, and then they take such a drastic decision about their lives. Or it could be that they may be like someone would have been spiking their drinks or something during the celebration that would have caused them to go mad. But I often think about this in terms of war. So, like, why do soldiers, what keeps soldiers motivated during all? They're sold a myth about, someone is coming over to, others people are coming over, so you have to fight them, or like someone is attacking. And like the way they're trained, they're kept away from, female sexuality and something. And it all gets sublimated into a sort of an ideal, like in their mind it has, they have like a sublime imagery of a woman or something. It's like, so this is what I thought about, like in terms of like the soldiers having the same mind as those castrated. It's like she's creating a hive of bees around her. They cannot hurt her, but they can hurt people outside, and like this is the myth that soldiers operate, like, you have to protect your motherland, or so you must go out and fight. Like these are the
Or
classical
Lady
myths
Liberty or
nowadays.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, liberties, I mean, yeah, Lady Liberty. The person who's always in the back of the mind, like previous, like before this all computer shit, that people had a sort of an ideal, and the ideal was like their mother back home, the real mother back home. Maybe like this, see images of women crying for their sons or husbands or lovers. So I think that kind of emotion that you talked about with Adonis ritual, she has a period of mourning, like enforced mourning. I think it has a very powerful psychological effect. Like this whole cult is built around that artificial mourning, like the Sibyl cult. It's like literally creating tragedy for people to mourn, and like, what are they even doing? But like, it's maybe strengthening them as a group. Maybe I think about all those people, the Muslims. What do? They hit themselves during Muharram, and it's like it's very very strange and barbaric to me. But like that's what I think about it. It's like there's some sort of sex magic going on there, and I think the unique thing is somewhat unique thing. The training of soldiers, the training of any kind of you have to have some very strong unit of people, and like where else can they go? Like if they're crash treated, they cannot go outside to join another religion or like lead a new life. They are bound there. So like they don't have any life choices other than being in that group. It's a very strange, like it's like they're branding themselves to be that, and they're being manipulated by this great mother archetype in the back of their minds that they're somehow devoted to, and they're to protect. That's what I feel. I mean, you brought up begonia. I thought there was a beehive imagery in there somewhere. I thought
Oh yeah.
that's what I
There
thought
is
about.
it.
Like,
Yeah, the beehives. I mean, we've looked at this, that the bees are symbols of alchemy, right? They're like nature's alchemists in terms of turning things into gold. And what you're saying about wartime being possibly connected to this fertility and sex cult, the first thing that came to mind is how soldiers, especially in World War II, got in the habit of like painting women on the sides of their airplanes and ships and things like that. So that's interesting. But I mean, obviously, this is not organized. And this gets into an interesting question about whether or not there is how decentralized this is. And I've argued elsewhere, these are kind of like the natural movements of the mind. Like whether or not we are part of the cults that have these rites and rituals going on within them, it's almost like we're going to act them out regardless, you know? And I think about this, thinking about the Gali, the transgender class here in these fertility rites, something that we'll probably dwell on and think more deeply about next time. Because I was like, well, who are the Gali? If JFK is Attis and Jackie is Sibylle, right? Well, who are the Gali in terms of the '60s? And I was like, and I thought about it. I was like, oh, it's the hippies, because it was the feminization of men, right? The men started growing their hair long and wearing unconventional dress and associating themselves with flowers and things like that. And were they given marching orders from the Jackie to do this? No, but there's something about the death of the Addis figure, and I have to psychologically think about it, and having their minds fractured in a way and seeing that almost precipitated that in some way. Similarly, we seem to have some aspects of Attis worship going on right now, which gets into the recycling of this with Trump. One of the first things, and I haven't had a chance to think deeply about it, but uh, uh, is that the Attis cult is from Phrygia, right? And that we get the notion of the Phrygian cap from the red cap that was popular in the French Revolution. We get that from this region of the world during this particular time. And I think about it's like there's got to be some sort of line of continuity with the red MAGA hats and these Phrygian hats. And do these have like a latent symbolism that's activating something deep within our collective psyche that we don't know? They're a very strange appearance, right? To see all these supporters just wearing these red hats as a way to identify each other out in public and stuff like that as well. And then to have that going on simultaneously with with an explosion of gender reassignment surgery in America. Like the timing, I don't have it all worked out. I'm not trying to make a judgment on anyone, but the timing of these things seem to track with this Attis ritual from long ago.
It kind of does. I mean, you also have to take into consideration that the hippies, like who were supplying them those drugs, it was the
Right.
like people talk about the CIA people, they were supplying them those drugs, or like the Grateful Dead, they were distributing acids. Like, how does the Phrygian hat looks like? Like, does it look like this crown that this lady is wearing, or like what does it look like?
It's like it kind of looks like a stocking cap, like a,
Oh,
but I don't know the exact material that it's made out of.
yeah,
Jordan might
sure.
want to pull it up there, but once you see it, you'll be like, oh, I know. It kind of looks like, yeah, it just kind of looks like a stocking cap. It's not as firm.
Yeah.
I think it falls backwards,
I mean, you're
and
right
perhaps it's a
to
stretch to
draw
connect these
parallels.
things.
You're right to draw parallels to the French Revolution because there is information about like because there were literally a secret group, the Jacobins, and it's like
Right.
we talk about secret groups in a hushed tone, but like the French Revolution was brought about by a literal secret society, and they were open about it. And even in the Napoleon movie that Kubrick was very inspired by, that was released in 1915 by Abel Glance. So when the French Revolution would start happening, like people, there would be symbols of Freemasonry like around them like 1915 and symbols of
Yeah.
freemasonry are around the people who are calling for revolution. So that was interesting to me. I thought, because I like to think in my mind like the French Revolution was like a good thing. It came out from the ground, like we have to abolish monarchy. But yeah, I mean, everything, these things are kind of manufactured in a way. So that's what I
Yeah.
felt after watching that. Yeah, it's a pretty lady.
That's kind of what they look. They kind of look like Papa Smurf's hat. Do you guys get the Smurfs in India?
Yeah, sure, we get them.
There you go. Geez, are the Smurfs an attic cult? Is that what we're going to end up talking about next week?
Well, they're
Papa Smurf is
mostly
Attis.
eunuchs.
That's right. That's right. Like it. Yes, Smurfette. There's a whole thing about this in like Donnie Darko, right? Isn't like Smurfette like a creation of Gargamel that he was going to use to subvert them?
Yeah, he says something along those lines
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
it's interesting. I think I know what that looks like to me, but
Yeah. All right. Should we keep it moving?
sure. I mean, you don't want to talk about circumcision. I feel like
Not right now. It's too early for that. It's always going to be too early for me to talk about that.
yeah, that's fair, but I do think that plays into this. It's another layer of it. The transgender stuff is more new, but not totally new, but it's a focal point right now, and I think it might be a focal point in a way that distracts from an underlying ritual that continues.
Hmm. Yeah, where did it come from? That's a great point. Like, where did circumcision come from? Like, it's so normalized in America, right? And it's like, oh well, it was done for sanitary reasons in the Bible. Like, and there's like real
Mm,
medical debate about whether or not it ought to be. Okay.
It's
yeah,
done to prevent pleasure. It's done to make hardened men. So
I think it plays
they
into
don't
what
feel
Austin was
things.
talking about earlier. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Clearly uncomfortable. I'm traumatized. I'm having memories of my my own circumcision. Okay. What do I want to talk about here? I wanted to get some of these characters straight. So, the story of Attis, his biological mother is named Nana, and she was a river nymph who became pregnant after a piece of fruit from a magical almond tree fell into her lap. And this sounds crazy, but this is how it all happened. And I don't know if Frazer like emphasizes this enough. So I went deeper into it. So Cybele is like, or Cybele, I should say, is simultaneously like the grandmother and the lover of of Attis. And so because originally she was a dual gendered being named, let me get this right, Agadistis. And the gods castrated Agadistis, and an almond tree grew from that spot. So this castration thing goes back before Attis castrated himself, and then the Gali started castrating themselves. Because the tree, Cybele's offspring, impregnated Nana, Cybele is technically the grandmother or source of Attis's life. And this is also why we'll look at this distinction, why she's considered the Magna Mater, or like one of these mother goddesses, right? Because ultimately, from that almond tree, we get Attis. And then once Attis grew up, Cybele fell in love with him. All right, this is not unlike the story of Adonis and Persephone. And she gets like crazy jealous. The father, in the Phrygian version, Zeus accidentally impregnated the earth, Cybele Agdistis, making him the original progenitor of the entire line. So there's this other little story there. So I think that's interesting, right? That Cybele was not always Cybele, that she was this dual gendered creature, Agdistis. Now, I mentioned earlier, this is the part circled here, and I have it slightly covered up because I ran out of space. This is the air quotes Asian part of the world that is Phrygia. And I was like, well, what is modern day Phrygia? Wouldn't you know? Modern day Phrygia is Turkey. Now, look, this can be me reaching so much, but why might it be significant, at least on a linguistic level, that modern Phrygia is Turkey? Think back to last time. Gobble, gobble. All right, I'll explain. JFK dies at Thanksgiving.
Sorry, you were lagging a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But it seems fine now.
All right. Is it working? JFK is cut down 3 days after he pardons a turkey for Thanksgiving. And we're looking at the possible parallels between Thanksgiving and Hilaria. Is that feels simultaneously like a huge stretch, but also like a little wink and joke about this whole thing. Not to mention, I went a little bit into it in the preparation for this. Where did the whole like notion of pardoning a turkey come from? I think, and I didn't talk about this very much last time because there was just so much to go through, but I want to look deeper at this John Barleycorn figure. There was someone who commented on one of our recent videos who was quoting the John Barleycorn poem by Robert Graves, which is interesting because Robert Graves also did Catcher in the Rye, which inspired Catcher in the Rye, which is connected to the July 16th synchromistic holiday that is also the stage for the Apollo 11 launch and the death of JFK Jr. So the turkey kind of becomes a totem scapegoat for the initial cutting down of this John Barleycorn figure. I believe Traffic had a song called John Barleycorn Must Die in 1970, which reflects this Celtic mythology. But I don't know. Do you think there's something to this, that Phrygia is modern Turkey, and why this potential Attis ritual happened on Thanksgiving?
I think it's fun.
I don't
It's
think it's very
interesting.
strong. Like right now,
Okay,
it
that's
becomes
fine. That's
stronger.
fine. That's fine. I know it's not very strong. I know it's not very strong, but I also know the reality is funny.
It is funny. Yeah.
You mentioned that channel last episode. I was watching it, like the coherent worldview, right?
The what? Oh, the coherent worldview. Oh, you watched some of those videos?
Yeah, yeah. So the watch that he had, it was called Big Irony. hijacker watch. So that was
Yep.
so you're talking about
Yeah.
reality being
Yeah.
funny. That
Yeah,
jumped into
yeah.
my mind.
What he's talking about is like the first man who like died on 9/11. I think his name was Danny Ewan or something like that. And they use this one press photo over and over again, and he's like posing like this where you can clearly see his watch, and the name of his watch is called the Hijacker. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, reality could be funny. So I'm not like totally writing it off, but I'm like maybe Turkey could have some other origin. I'm just not comfortable with like just US Thanksgiving ritual being, you know, causing the name of a country to be called a Turkey. So
well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying perhaps when you're scheming lining things up, if the sentient world simulation was lining things up, I could see it having a sense of humor about that. You know what's
yeah, yeah,
interesting is is that the turkey kind of has like a Frazean hat on. That's kind of interesting too. Like the redness of it, the redness of its head in some ways mirrors that. Okay, I'm reaching. I'm doing a lot of reaching right now. So let's move on. Okay. What do we oh, this was talking about the source of the madness, like why Attis ended up castrating himself. He had to so he was about to marry a mortal princess at a royal banquet, and Cybele in her divine power during the wedding song caused everyone present to go mad. This is one of the sources of it. This is the Pausanias tradition or the Phrygian tradition. Also in Ovid's Fasti, Attis breaks his vow of celibacy with the wood nymph Sagaritis. Okay, so this, I guess, one of the potential lovers. And Cybele kills the nymph by cutting her tree. And Attis, seeing this, suffers hallucinations that his home is collapsing and he is being hunted by spirits. Um, so that's another source of the madness. Catullus, you get the idea. I could go on and on about this, but there's different sources of the madness. Also, in one particular case, when I was like, okay, that's great. In the stories where Attis castrates himself, what about when Attis is killed by the bull? And so apparently Zeus unleashed a monstrous boar on Lydia to punish its people for honoring the mother goddess Cybele more than him. Attis, her favorite, paid the price for the shift in devotion. So the story where he's gored to death has not so much that he took a mortal lover, but given the mother goddess worship and a way for Zeus to get back at Cybele. So these
yeah.
are
I
just
mean, yeah.
details, important
Mm.
details. I think we looked at when we were looking at how Adonis, who sent the boar that killed Adonis. I feel like that was a fruitful exercise. So that's why I did this too.
The fact that she has lions is pretty interesting. Like, could it be related to the Book of Daniel or something? Like, have you read it? I always see the
Well,
imagery of.
that gets back to the book of Revelation, is that many people believe the book of Daniel to be another apocalyptic book, right? Because I believe there are several apocalyptic prophecies that go on there, and that because of this, because the book of Revelation and Daniel are both about the apocalypse, they are connected. So that's, I think, in some ways, if that's the case, then it would make the Revelation 17 thing that I have here on my face even more relevant. It wouldn't
Mm.
surprise me if that was the case. Those remind me of the lions that you speak of in the book of Daniel. Oh, like Daniel and the lions den?
Yeah, yeah. So
Maybe so.
I'm just
Maybe.
thinking like he has control over those lions. So I thought like she too has controls over those lions. So they could have or like um always think about the Book of Daniel with respect to The Shining, and like he's named Danny. So I thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the name Danny or Daniel means only God can judge me, which I find very interesting that Danny wears the Apollo sweater. It's like, and that kind of feeds into this narrative that Kubrick perhaps is doing what he's doing in his cinematography for the good of mankind, and that he had to lie to ultimately accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, which was to liberate humanity.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan, we were just going in the source of madness. Now we're getting into Christmas trees, and this is, it's always good to admit when you're wrong about something. So I don't know if I'm wrong about this entirely, but I'm at least partially wrong, or I'm encountering some kind of Mandela effect and just wrong on this timeline. For a long time, I have said that Christmas trees are kind of a biblical abomination. And this is an idea that persists in a lot of Christian truther circles because a lot of Christian truthers take the Bible seriously and have read it a lot. There are these passages against tree worship, specifically in Jeremiah 10, where it says, please do not worship this tree, do not bring it into your home, do not put things on it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that when you read that, it says, don't deck it with like silver and gold, et cetera. And it's hard to not see this as talking about a Christmas tree. And so you start going, why are we doing some sort of druidic practice in Christianity where we're kneeling and giving presents to this tree and opening them up? Why is this even happening? Why are there trees in churches? At some point, I learned to chill out and just accept the synchronization because no one's going to listen to me. And so I just spew my nonsense here on the internet. But I looked a little deeper into it, and there are claims that the Christmas tree is not connected to this type of vegetation rituals that occur in Attis worship. And I was like, what? Apparently there was something in the in I don't know exactly when they got started, but at least in the 16th century, they were doing these things called paradise plays. What was a paradise play? I guess according to the Catholic Church, the feast day of Adam and Eve was Christmas Eve, which is interesting. That's Adam and Eve, and on Christmas Eve. And I didn't even know this. According to Catholic tradition, Adam and Eve are saints. They seem almost like kind of almost godlike in some way, given their long lives and them living in the garden. I think of saints as being fully human, and individuals that live 1,000 years, I don't typically think of as saints, but the Catholic Church considers Adam and Eve to be saints. And because of the chosen date of Christmas being December 25th, I guess when they're learning about the birth of Jesus, it's important to communicate to individuals why Jesus had to be born in the first place. Hence the retelling of the exile from paradise of Adam and Eve and why they would do these stories. And they would act these in the church on Christmas Eve, and they would have trees there that were supposed to symbolize the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. And over time, people started bringing these into their home so that they would be there on Christmas. This is the story. I'd never heard this before in my life. And apparently, Martin Luther is actually responsible for our modern day Christmas tree. He was like taking a walk through the woods, and he saw the stars glimmering through pine trees on his walk, and he's like, oh, you know what this tree needs from the paradise play? It needs some candles in it. And that's where we get the Christmas lights from. It's from Martin Luther. So me reading the book of Jeremiah being like, oh God, we got to throw out this Christmas tree. The man who's responsible for Protestantism is like, no, let's decorate these trees. Let's make them part of our tradition. And he was the very first one. So I don't know what's the craziest part about this. In my 46 years of life, until this week, I had never heard of a paradise play. Anybody else?
No, I
Never
had
heard
heard of
of it.
morality plays and passion plays, but not paradise plays.
It doesn't seem too far-fetched, actually. It seems like this would be very commonplace. I mean, we have plays about our epics every year around the time of festivals, so it's fitting. I think it's good that it's like an artistic vision of life. So I don't see any problem with it. I don't think we should always
But
stick by the book in that sense.
well, I think it's interesting that the paradise play went away, but we have this vestige of it with the Christmas tree. And I feel like this is a partial explanation. Like, even if this is how we get the modern day Christmas tree, I'm still not satisfied with it. I still think that this is going to trace back to these air quotes pagan cults. I mean, it's my understanding that Christmas trees didn't really catch on in America until the early 20th century. America was founded by Puritans, largely. Uh, and the Puritans were puritanical. And guess what? They read the Bible and they read Jeremiah 10 and say, we are not doing that Christmas tree thing. This is pagan. And it wasn't until much later, it's really a relatively recent development in America, did the Christmas tree get associated with commercialism and a wide kind of really capitalism in order to sell more things around that time of year. It became a symbol that more people could relate to than the cross. So the Puritans, they were like, we don't care if Martin Luther said the Christmas tree was okay. We're not doing that.
Yeah, a cross would be so macabre in that sense. It's like, like
Well, I'm not sure the Bible condones a cross either. I mean, we can have a legitimate conversation about whether or not the instrument of execution should be something featured in church or worn around our necks as well. And really, because the cross was a tree, was wooden, we're not really that far removed from putting a pine deodorizer around your neck if you put a cross. I hate that, sounds so blasphemous, but I think there's a legitimate conversation to be had about whether or not Jesus would actually approve of the cross as a symbol.
Yeah, I agree.
And of course, it's going to be connected to this Attis worship too, because, they carried these effigies, they would take these pine figures and parade them around. And that sounds a lot like, that's kind of, Jesus is not visible on a lot of these crosses, at least not in Protestant countries. This may happen in some Catholic ones where they are more comfortable with the graphic details of the crucifixion. But whenever you see crosses, at least in Protestant churches, that nasty element is been sanitized and removed. So it kind of becomes a stand-in, like there's like an invisible Christ in your mind's eye on that cross.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So speaking of Christian imagery, we looked at how Nana got got impregnated by the almond in order to have the virgin birth of Attis. The almond is not an uncommon symbol in Christianity as well, right? And we've looked at this before with the mandorla. We looked at the mandorla that was in, I believe, one of the reception halls that the Pope used in order to greet the astronauts. Also, I didn't point this out last time when we looked at the meeting between JFK and the Pope where he shakes his hand. But typically the mandorla, this almond shape here, is a representation of the merger or the intersection of heaven and earth, right? Where we have the temporal and the transcendental interact with one another. And that's why we typically have Christ or Virgin Mary and the Christ child at the center of the Vesica Pisces, right? Now it's a question whether or not when Christian artists and theologians are using this imagery, are they drawing on the Attis cult? Or again, is the Attis cult, or at least our understanding of the Attis cult, being influenced by already pre-existing symbols that were within the Christian faith? And I'm not enough of an expert to say which one came first. I think there's a lot of guesswork that goes on when you look at these smaller cults, right? Like, how accurate is the dating that we have? How many artifacts do we really have? How fragmentary are the writings? These traditions and writings are so much better preserved in the Christian tradition than in a lot of these other ones. Like frequently when I'm trying to put slides together for this, it's like impossible to find original artworks. I'm frequently having to choose between having nothing at all or something AI generated, or copies and copies. Like I'm not even sure. I started this thing off with looking at that Diana statue. It may have been that one that may the one that was on the Titanic is a replica of that other one. I'm not really sure that Diana statue is the original one to begin with. That it itself may have been a replica. But this frequently happens. There's not as much evidence for these stories of our understanding of the past as we think there are. It's like anything, when if you ask people why they know the Earth goes around the sun, they go, someone somewhere proved that, and then you start kind of digging in. And it's like, ooh, this evidence. This is as good as I thought it was, right? Similarly, when you start digging into this stuff, we don't know as much as we pretend to know.
It's been really fascinating to discover how much of the New Age language, symbolism, stories originate with Blavatsky, who channeled it. And there's nothing else to go along with it. It doesn't necessarily make a thing true or not true, but as you said, Luke, it's not like with the Mithraic stuff. There's a lot of missing pieces, and we're interpreting fragmented remains of these myths.
Right. Like, how do we, I think Frazer even says this at some point, like, how do we really know the psychological motives of the individuals that were participating in these cults? Like, how do we really know what the Galli were thinking by castrating themselves?
We really don't, and we're interpreting it through our own lens.
I mean, we could know about pain. So like they might have
Sure,
felt pain.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too difficult to speculate about what they might have felt. I personally think they might have been drugged or something, or some sort of an ancient herb would have been distributed among them. So also think about all of these symbols. You talk about origination. I think they're all polyvalent and they change from region to region because in order for Christianity to get more members, it has to appeal to that group of people where they're situated. So I see that in India, like how they operate, the Christians in India. So they model their churches as our temples. So anyone who would be going in, they would not feel that they're entering some different place, but just that the symbol in the middle has been replaced with a cross. So, I mean, that's
Mhm.
how, other symbols. So, 300 years later, someone would say, oh, look at this. What are these special symbols from India? Look, oh, wow. They are, they are accommodating these pagan deities in the cross. So, think about that. So, maybe those simple elements could be picked up by Christian missionaries or, the people who write about it just to incorporate other religion, other people into them, or just to say that, oh, we are the ones who originated this, you copied it from us. In a sense, that's why they try to, it's a polyvalent mythology. They it's like you want to expand all over the world, so you draw your map in a way that it can encompass everything as much as it wants and exclude the things
Yeah,
that it wants.
Osik, that's you're really anticipating the next slide
yeah,
perfectly. So perhaps we should go to it.
that's
And
true.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. I just think it's very timely for us to talk about this exactly. So this is the 1962 trip that JFK and Jackie made to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's a mouthful. I'm not Catholic, so I'm learning about all this as I go. Um, what and I found out when going through this material what exactly this basilica was all about and why it's one of the most uh, beloved religious sites in the entire country of Mexico. Um, I am not some expert on the history here, but I think that my understanding of it is that Mexico was resistant to conversion to Christianity because of how entrenched the Aztec religion was there um, for so long, and they even worshipped. If you can zoom in on this, Jordan, they even worshipped a mother goddess figure at this site where I'm going to tell the story. I believe I'm trying to remember its name. I can't really see it. It's so small here. It starts with a T. But anyway, there was a convert monk named Juan Diego, and Juan Diego supposedly was walking in the mountains and he had an encounter with the Virgin Mary. And he ran back and the Virgin Mary said, "You need to build a church or a temple here to me." And he ran to the local bishop. And he was trying to convince him that this had happened and he didn't believe him. So he went back up there And apparently he had this another Marian vision, and she left this impression on his cloak. Okay. And I believe his cloak was made out of cactus fiber, which is important for understanding the miraculous nature of this site. So he runs back to the bishop and says, "Hey, check this out." And as he shows him the Marian image that has been imprinted upon his cloak, all these roses fall out. And he was like, "Okay, this is for real. This is legit." Jordan, are you able to zoom in on this slide at all? There you go. Thank you. And so this is the mother goddess figure that was present before the Virgin Mary appeared to Juan Diego. This is the stone figure of Tonatzin, okay, found at the Museo Nacional de las Intervenciones, Mexico City. Okay, thank you. We can go back to the main slide. Thank you very much. So I found this all very intriguing. I love the imagery here. I'm thinking about getting a hoodie with this on it. If it's not too disrespectful, I'm still doing my research on that. But given how much we've looked at these different great mother archetypes and mother goddesses, it and how they seem to circulate and descend upon Jackie, I was like, I gotta look closer at this. So she walks out of this basilica, wouldn't you know, with a bouquet of red roses. And Jackie is actually pretty proficient in Spanish. Actually, I've listened to old campaign commercials, and she spoke it throughout this trip. She spoke in Spanish. She's actually pretty dang good. And she even kind of dressed to fit the Catholic population there. So, intentional or not, when she comes out of this basilica, it's hard to not see her stepping into the role of the Virgin Mary. And we talked about this last time with how the Pope gave JFK a replica of the Pieta, and then the gifted or loaned the larger Pieta for the World's Fair. It's hard to deny that something is going on here where she is stepping into this role. And I imagine the people there noticed also, as they were looking at what seemed to be a manifestation of the Virgin Mary, that the president's name was John, just like Juan. Juan means John, right? And John even has connections with a revelation from Jehovah. I think that's what the name John actually means. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I would put this in the bucket that we have another very strong example of this archetype seizing or taking hold of Jackie. This meeting was different than the meeting with the Pope, right? The whole idea of struggling with Catholic identity was a persistent one in the Kennedy administration. Unlike the Pope meeting, where Kennedy did not kiss the Pope's hand and just shook it, in this meeting or in this event, JFK actually knelt before the basilica. I could not find any images of him kneeling before the basilica or kneeling in church, but he wanted to, given how Catholic a country Mexico is, he wanted to lean more into his Catholic identity to make them a stronger ally, whereas he did not want to kiss the hand of the Pope to fend off critics that would say that he was just doing the Pope's bidding in America. So he was kind of doing both. He was leaning away from his Catholic identity when at the Vatican and leaning into it while in Mexico. The context really shaped this. And something else I noticed about this, you see the bubble top here on the limo. I don't know if it would have stopped a bullet or anything like that. There's some debate about whether or not it would actually, but going through a lot of these old photos, it's so obvious. It's so bizarre whenever I see the limo there and it's always got its top on and then they take it off for Dallas. So that's what this slide is about. I didn't get a chance to go deeper into it. Jordan and I watched a documentary or two about it or some travel videos. So perhaps she remembers some details that I've left out.
It's exactly what you were saying, Ostic. They mentioned that this hill that they were told to build the temple on top of was a hill that was already in use by the previous religion for worship, for cultural events. So it's exactly that. They use the same spot. Some people might say maybe there are ley lines or energetic lines, right? That might be another layer of this, but what was presented, at least in these more documentarian stuff, is yeah, this was a place where the old religion was practiced and the new religion just took over in the same spot. And they even talked a lot about how this particular image of Mary, who they call the Lady of Guadalupe, and I was confused as a kid. I thought that they were different beings. I didn't think it was Mary. And the one of the girls who did one of the travel videos had the same misunderstanding about it as well. So I think it's very fascinating that she is both a very distinct iteration of Mary, but also the same, kind of how we see with all these mythogems, all these different versions of Adonis. We have like the chthonic, not Adonis, but Aphrodite, and then we have like the light. We have all these different aspects, right, of these god goddess figures. This isn't necessarily like an underworld version, but a very regionally specific version.
You're right
S
to point that out. Just add to this how they made her look, I guess the word's mestiza. They
I
made
think
her
that's what
look
they said, basically a mix between the indigenous and the Spanish
right. So they
genetic lines. This
right.
particular photo of Mary, they noted would look more like the people who lived there, who they were trying to win over into the Catholic Church.
Not to mention the color scheme as well, being sort of national symbols. The red and the green
Correct.
were already something that the people of Mexico. This happened in the 16th century, by the way. This wasn't
Yeah.
like it didn't happen like right before the Kennedys got there, but it triggered the mass conversion of the population to Catholicism. And people who are skeptical about this saying, look, like this is a psyop. This is like a painting. This is something to play on the primitive mind of the individuals there. Now, I haven't gone
It's
into the
still
part
very, very important to
is
this region of the world too.
oh yeah.
It may be an old symbol, but it continues to be a mainstay in the Catholic religion for Mexicans. Like, people even travel from all around the world. Like, we may or may not, we probably won't get to Mecca today, but in a similar fashion, people pilgrimage to the site many, many years later.
And you can see like how her dark hair like parallels the dark hair of Jackie as well. Like
Yeah.
she see like she gets even closer to the Marian imagery there. So apparently this cloak is framed and hung in the basilica, and so it's like over 500 years old, or it's 500 years old. I don't know the exact date. And supposedly this is miraculous because given the nature of the material that it appeared on, it should have deteriorated by now. It's on cactus fiber, but I don't know. I mean, who knows if they close and touch it up or whatever. I have no idea. I think it's beautiful. I think it's fascinating. I love the imagery, but how does this happen, right? Like, how do we get how do we get the roses and the goddess figure coming up over and over again?
Not sure, but it's coming, so it must mean something. Like she
Yeah.
said specifically that she received the red roses in Dallas, and now she's receiving the red roses here. She might be
Yep.
forgetting things. So
Yeah, I think well what she said is that particular trip she was in Dallas because I believe like yellow roses are associated with the state of Texas. Is that right, Jordan?
Yes, it's the
So,
flower of the
so
state.
right. So every place that she went prior to Dallas, she got yellow roses, and then when she got to Dallas, they gave her 3 bouquets of red roses. Now I don't know if I don't know how often Jackie was getting red roses. I find it very interesting if these are the only 2 occurrences, or she was everybody just knew you had to give Jackie red roses because they intuitively understood that she was the Virgin Mary or something.
I al- I also think that line from The Shining when Almond tells them that so this whole place was built on an Indian burial ground, and they had to repel a few Indian attacks as they were building it. So that line that has a bit more sense than simple like PC washing. Like it's not about like guilt. It's about something being supplanted, and that's still having some sort of an effect over that place. Because as we see in the hotel, there are still pagan myths being played out. It's like I think of this like that hotel was some sort of a rationalist Christian worldview built upon a land that already had its own rules and regulations, and now it's sort of playing out in that hotel. So I'm thinking about it metaphorically in that sense. Like we people talk about it politically, but metaphorically it also kind of fits there.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can go to the next one. We've got a little bit of time. We can keep. We've got what? We've got 44 minutes. Is that right, Jordan? Okay. Briefly, I just wanted to talk about. I made a bit of a conflation, although I don't know how bad it was. I think I just, in general, last time we were talking about Aphrodite and Persephone intro. It's always a little hard to get these things started. You stumble over your words a little bit, trying to just tantalize people about what you're going to be talking about through the entire thing. There is a difference between standard goddesses and mother goddesses. In general, there's like a specific thing that we associate with like a standard goddess versus a mother goddess who's like cosmic and the progenitor of the line. And you know, because of this distinction, I think you can understand that Aphrodite and Persephone are in some way better understood to be standard goddesses, whereas Cybele, yeah, there we go. Cybele is better understood to be a mother goddess. And then if you can go to the next slide, Jordan. It doesn't, these things are not necessarily fixed. As time goes on, there might be aspects of them. Even if they have children, they're not necessarily mother goddesses, but they can take on that hue in time. And as far as what the Virgin Mary is, I'm not exactly sure you would call her a mother goddess or the archetypal mother. And these definitions have limitations. But in general, it's probably wrong for me to have said in that opening last time that Aphrodite and Persephone were mother goddesses. They were standard goddesses. So I just wanted to make that clear. So we can go to the next slide if you like. Anybody who wants to pause and look at that, they can.
Just the
Okay.
fact that the great mother goddess like demands a sacrifice from its subjects. That's interesting to
Yeah.
me in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean the children have to be reabsorbed into the mother, right? Like we are
Their lives have
reabsorbed into the earth.
kind of.
Okay. Let's talk about Castro again. Okay. So last week, Ostick appropriately pointed out, he's like, "Oh, you're going to love this whole Castro insight when we get to Attis." And I was like, "Okay, I am not as familiar with it because I had read the Adonis and Aphrodite stuff like 10 times." But he's right, right? Of course, when we have all this ritualistic castration that's going on with Attis and the galley, etc. So the thing I pointed out last time is etymologically, the name Castro, it means fortress, but it also means cut off, like being separated and hard to reach. And so, because of that etymological understanding, there is a bit of a crossover with the word castration. So, it in some ways explains a lot of things. That the man who would ultimately kill Kennedy was an extension. This is the normie narrative, right? Was a sympathizer of Castro, was an extension of that word, that terminology, and led to him being cut down in Dealey Plaza, which, and I haven't dwelled on this so much. We've talked about Elm Street and the meaning of elms and whatnot, but you clearly see that it's populated with all different sorts of trees here. Not necessarily pine, but oaks and whatnot. So we see it being kind of like a sacred grove that the Attis figure would be cut down in. Now we're going to talk a little bit about his burial at Arlington Cemetery, where pines are very prevalent, and someone that we talked about in previous podcasts pops back up. So we'll get to that in a second. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Maybe also you can talk about like the grassy knoll being an aspect of the vegetation ritual here. But I just wanted to point out the grove-like nature of Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, I mean it's blood on the grass. That's the thing. Like that's the real imagery that's going on, because when we see the Zapruder film, it's just that, it's just greenery and then a sudden
Yeah,
burst of blood all over that, and it's
that's
supposed to
true.
be,
That's true.
yeah. So
Something something I didn't know, and I haven't had a chance to think about the symbolism of it. I've not really been a big history buff. I'm turning into one just because that's where this archetypal symbolism is leading me. Uh, I did not know this, but apparently Lee Harvey Oswald was like a committed communist at like the age of 15. This is the story. This is the story of how it goes. Um, and that he joined them. I was like, then why is a committed communist like joining the Marines if he like fundamentally hates America? And that is something that is perplexing to me. But I think the identification with being red is important, and reading the red literature. I don't know exactly where that fits it. Maybe it's just to conjure up more blood imagery for the ritual. But I do find that interesting. It was so also fascinating going back and watching old newsreels, like when Walter Cronkite like broke the news. He was trying to initially portray the shooters or shooter, because he supposedly didn't know what was going on, as being likely uh, a far right person. That Dallas was supposedly a hotbed of far right activism, and then it turned out to be, according to their narrative, uh, a committed communist that killed JFK. Of course, that's going
same
to be
thing
very
happened with
important.
the CK
Yeah.
thing as well. So people were
The
talking
what
about
thing?
the Calvin
Oh, the
Klein thing.
CK thing.
So people were talking about, there must be some kind of a far left guy who would have shot him or something. But then it turns out like it was a white guy. People were thinking, oh, please let it not be a brown person. They're gonna kill us all. So like that's what they
I will.
prayed.
I will vouch for you, Ostic. I will vouch for you.
I'm not there. I'm like people living there. They were like thinking like that, and I interact with them, so that's how got the news. But yeah, so they're like, oh, what now? So they could not turn it into some sort of um, a political um, disenfranchisement campaign or something. But yeah, you're right about that Castro thing.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
again,
story.
that insight is not my own. I got that from Downard from King Kill. He's the one that pointed out that. So I still haven't really thought through it. The fact that Marilyn Monroe was the artichoke queen from Castroville. Maybe you could spin a narrative that somehow Marilyn Monroe was part of his downfall. Um, but it is interesting that the name Castro comes up with both those figures. Okay.
We didn't. We never picked up on the first name, Fidel. So
Oh yeah. What do you want to say about
Fi-
that? I haven't I
just
haven't thought. It's just there's so much. There's so much. What do you want to say about it?
just the Fidelio thing with that's what I feel
Oh,
like, infidelity and it meaning marriage and unions and trust,
yes.
that kind of thing.
Yes.
So
Yes. I
I
like
didn't
that.
develop it, but I thought about it. I thought you might bring it up in some episode. Like you might say, "Oh, see, it's connected to Fidelio." Him,
Yeah,
might
no,
be.
it's just pretty overwhelming to get through all this stuff, man. But I will.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
it could also, connect with the sacred marriage thing and the
yes.
trust and the bindingness of the union. It's like, what is it? What could it mean? I'm not sure. It's such a different level of speculation. I'm not
It
even sure
really
what
is.
elements to pick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you have to be liberated from like traditional ways of thinking and reasoning to act on these levels. I wonder, because I think about this too, like how do you establish like epistemological framework so you don't just see everything as vindication of your perspective? Like of all the things I've said today, I think probably the turkey thing is the stretchiest, but at the same time, I don't think it's wrong because we've seen how this reality works. It likes to do riddles and jokes. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Could hilaria be the origin of the word hilarious?
I think there is some sort of connection there because the festival itself is a mixture of mourning and celebration. I'll look into that.
Hmm. Yeah, it could be. I mean, and Hillary Clinton as well. So that, yeah,
Ooh.
this is such a good picture of JFK. It's literally like that. That scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey. And if your camera would go in through that slit, it's like going through. Like I can see it. I can
Uh,
see myself walking through that slit and like walking
all
through
right.
that monolith in 2001.
I put this slide together at 11 o'clock last night when I was reviewing things, and I couldn't believe. I can't tell you the number of times I've looked at this JFK memorial over the past 10 years and tried to be like, and I've looked at it and I've looked at it and I've looked at it, and I was like, oh, there's a monolith. Oh, maybe I see some twin towers or something like that. It's never been obvious to me what this thing is. And I just kind of casually looked at it. And while I was researching it, this word came up called cenotaph. I was like, well, what's cenotaph? Cenotaph is a commemorative monument or empty tomb erected to honor a person or group of people whose remains are buried elsewhere or were never recovered. And then when I saw that cenotaph means empty tomb, I was like, this explains everything, because of everything that we've looked at with the Christic imagery associated with JFK, but also the Attis imagery being a resurrected figure. Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense that this memorial would be an empty tomb, not because it's referring to the remains being at Arlington Cemetery or whatever, because really what it's trying to say is that the spirit of JFK is risen and no longer here. And even the black slab there, I believe, has got to be a reference to the slab that Jesus was not on, and you had the folded robes and whatnot when the cave was opened. So, and I don't know if this is the architect, the designer of it. His name's Philip Johnson. It's hard for me to imagine he didn't know what he was doing. But maybe he did. Maybe he was just trying to make something tasteful, and we're projecting something onto it. There's always sort of plausible deniability here. Um, this was erected in 1970, and I believe Jackie signed off on it, and she's like, "Yeah, this is great." And the deeper I go into Jackie, it's really obvious that Jackie had a incredible familiarity with mythology. It's not just Camelot. It's not just. It's deep, and we're going to get into some of that today or throughout. But Jackie was a profoundly educated woman. She would be familiar with all this mythology. One of the interesting things that I learned here is that the columns, you see, I chose to use a version of it at night, but you see these illuminated columns. I believe there are 8 of them. They are intentionally a reference to the rockets, so that it's to give the illusion of this thing ascending or taking off, especially when it's lit up at night. So this incredibly minimalistic and sparse thing that I have just looked at in a puzzled fashion for almost a decade now makes perfect sense to me, especially when we start talking about the rocketry and it being a resurrecting event going to the moon and its connection to the alchemical marriage. This blew my mind. This blew my mind. It's one of those things you stare at it, and then when you get enough knowledge, it just pops into place. And I think that's clearly what this is.
And it was dedicated on June 24th, 1970. So, right after the peak of what we're told in the calendar is the maximum sun.
Did you, Asik, had you seen this before?
No, I did not
Is this the first
get.
time you're seeing this? I
I've
had
seen
it
this
ever
because you've
occurred?
shown me in slides, but I really like
Had
the. You continue.
had it ever occurred to you that this is an empty tomb?
I mean, I thought about it, but I did not connect it to Jesus, which is incredible. The thing that you've connected to Jesus, Jesus walking out of his tomb, and spreading his miracle around. So yeah, that fits so well. I'm very impressed by
Yeah.
that. It's such a simplistic thing, and it's sitting right there. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
let's.
I think the general populace, if I went up to some boomer and said, "Yeah, JFK was a Christ figure," they'd be like, "Yeah, kind of." Like that's not a crazy idea. And then I go, "Oh, and by the way, the memorial in Dallas, that's secretly an empty tomb telling you that like he's the manifestation of this archetype." They'd be like, "Oh, no, come on, man."
Yeah, June 24th also. I mean, there's so many symbolisms tied into it. I also think
It's
about
6/6,
6/6.
the 24.
What do you
Oh
mean?
yeah, sure. Yeah, 24. 2 plus
Yeah.
4, 6, 6,
Mhm.
Oh,
17.
oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
But just thinking about it seasonally, I think it plays right into this whole idea of it's denoting the resurrection of the JFK energy. Even the way the plaques are written, it's all about this is not about mourning or sorrow, it's about joy and like the positive attributes of his legacy that are living on. That's what all the plaques around it more or less say. They're saying, like, this is not about death, this is about life.
yeah. This is beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have finally gotten the answer to it. I have a
I
very
mean, it's
fringe
like
theory. Okay, you
it's kind of
continue.
crazy. It's kind of crazy just like be toiling with this material and then you have these moments where it's like it just all kind of falls into place. But maybe I'm the last to figure this out, you know? Maybe if I show this a bunch of people who are familiar with the material that we are, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's so obvious. You didn't know that already?"
No,
I
no,
think the
this is
Christ
just high
connection
school
is
bullying.
yeah.
Don't fall for it.
It's funny you say that. Yeah.
What exactly is yeah, yeah. So,
It
oh,
the deeper you get into all of this, I think the new levels of revelation, they don't feel like these cosmic shifts or these huge paradigm smashing things, but they like you said, they just click things into place. It just makes more sense, and especially as we're going into all of the Adonis, Adonai mythology, the vegetation cycles, the sun cycles that overlap with Christ. Of course, it's going to overlap with JFK as well. It's really fascinating.
yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's yeah. Let's go back to Sibylle if we can.
Yeah.
Go to the next slide. Okay, so I just wanted to point out some symbolism with Sibylle, specifically using the image that I used on the title card that helps us understand who she was. I got down this rabbit hole. I was like, why is she the goddess of civilization? And we talked about her, like here she is riding the lion, right? So this is the taming of nature, the lion being an extension of that, and hence why some individuals think that she is riding the beast. She is the whore of Babylon in Revelation 17. Um, I've talked about her mural crown. I talked about how that is again another reference to her being a civilizing force, right? These are structures that are meant to preserve the civilization. You see that because she is the consort, she's frequently associated with the moon, and Attis is associated with the sun. You can see the sun behind her, right, accompanying her. This scepter that she has um, is this might be a reference to her sovereignty and her dominion over the tripartite realm of sky, earth, and underworld. I think that's what that means. Okay. And she has like a tambourine thing on her wrist there. This is the tympanum drum, which induces madness and it also symbolizes the pulse of the Mother Earth. Right. So we get into the galley who like get worked up into frenzies. Might this is the story of like drumming being associated with females. And I got to thinking about that in regards to, like, especially like the taming of animals. When I think back about the symbolism of blackjack and how blackjack was like struggling to stay disciplined during this funeral that Jackie put together. You know, Jackie is the preserver of civilization. She is the Sibylle character who is guarding us and trying to bestow order upon a very chaotic event. And in that light, you can kind of see her domesticating Blackjack the horse by extension. And we talked about this, like she, within hours of the assassination, she had already started planning the funeral. And she's like, yeah, we're going to make it like Lincoln's.
This card, I I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it beckons the strength Rider Waite tarot card.
Mm. Can you put an image of that on the screen?
Yeah, I can.
I don't know what that is. Interesting. Huh.
Mhm. And I've
That's
seen it in many different decks in different ways, but it's usually like a feminine character with a lion. This is the Rider
Mother
Waite one,
Nature.
which is yeah, this is like more Golden Dawn, that kind of lineage uses this imagery a lot, which we know is super influential. Crowley's super influential and tied into what's going on in America.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
You want to say anything
I
about
mean,
this
yeah,
one?
it's just a summary of what we have been discussing these past few episodes. So I don't have anything to add to this, but I just want to say that these, like we talked about Trump earlier, like why he's associating himself. I think about like for historical events, for historical things to come about in the public consciousness, like the Apollo missions and these things, there has to be some sort of a ritual element attached to it, like a very strong ritual element, not just very low key one. The killing of Kennedy was a very strong ritual event in that sense, that it could have so much power that people would deify him a few years later, and then so many things could be built on under his name. So he's like a Trojan horse, and his body is being used as a Trojan horse for all these other things. Okay, Kennedy is dead, so now we can do this in his name. We can do that in his name. It's like a cloak. You can wear the cloak of Kennedy and do things. So I'm just thinking about like why we would need such elaborate rituals. We have already said that, but like I was thinking about why Trump would do that, because he has seen this playbook work before, and he's like a very astute thinker. He had this political advisor called Roy Cohn, and he would have known like what effect it could have on the collective consciousness if I do
Well,
these
Roy
things.
Cohn knows a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think he is doing this deliberately, and trying to repeat certain powerful imagery and make himself more important than he might be in that sense. Like he could have fallen into obscurity. Why does he need to be president? Like he does not need to be president. He's the richest man, like such a rich man. He does not have any ambitions of money of that sort. But maybe he's been blackmailed into it or something. Like people talk about it.
Well, the QAnon stuff, the understanding there is that he was recruited by the military to do this, to run for president. And so he's kind of like a civilian face. But he probably doesn't even, if that's true, I don't even know if he fully knows how he's being used in this pageant that is current affairs. There's all different sort of intelligence, psychological operations in the military. Um, a lot of different head fakes if they're sort of engaged in this internecine battle behind the scenes, and they may be casting him in these roles, and he doesn't even understand what he's doing. And it might be part of this mythic dethronement. If the Kennedy stuff was all about these rituals and creating the philosopher's stone with the image of the earth, maybe this is like what's necessary in order to deprogram everyone from those rights and pave over it.
Yeah, so it's like deprogram or reprogram.
Or reprogram into the next thing.
Ostic,
Yeah.
you bring up a good point I thought about too at the beginning of today's session when you were on a similar topic. A lot of the power of the JFK mythology is the dying god. And is that something Trump is aware of or not? Because to me, the reason a lot of this is so juicy is because of the dying god ritual. And so, did they try to emulate that with the fake assassination thing, or is it just overlooked? Like, but I don't know how you have so much loosh from this without that part of the story. So is he just like trying to harvest what has already been sown? Or I don't know. It's happening in real time for me.
Hmm.
But I do think Roy Cohn is a big part of this puzzle and someone to study if anyone wants more clarity on what's going on.
I know precious little about him. I mean, yeah, we'll get into it. You and I'll do a little research on that later. Okay, this was probably one of the more interesting things I found. If we can go to the next slide, Jordan. Okay, I'm jumping the gun here a little bit because then we have future chapters that are going to be about ISIS, but I couldn't sit on this. Okay, so we've looked at how Jackie gets associated with the Virgin Mary. We've looked at how she gets associated with Aphrodite. We've looked at how she gets associated with Cybele. Now I'm finding things about her being associated with Isis, the goddess Isis, the Egyptian goddess Isis. Let's be clear about that. So very early on in the Kennedy presidency, there was a building project in Egypt where they were going to build this dam. I believe it was called, I forget, it was like the Aswan Dam or something like that. Anywho, the problem with this is that it would have required the flooding of this temple complex called the Temple of Dindur. And Jackie was like, oh no, this would be like losing the Parthenon. Okay. We cannot let this happen. So she was very involved in trying to save this religious complex. And I think I think she was effective in her role in doing that. So this temple complex, the Temple of Dindur, was dedicated to Isis. So of all the temples that she should try to save, it's one dedicated to, again, another female goddess figure. After JFK is killed, she and others are fighting over where this should end up. Okay, she really wanted to put it on the Potomac and have it be part of like a memorial to JFK as well, which would have been really crazy. I got to go deeper into the details. Ultimately, the people that were trying to get it to be this outdoor merger of present day and ancient memorials lost, and it was relocated to the Met in New York, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Now, what's even crazier about this is that Jackie later on in her life would live in New York, and she ended up living directly across the street in this apartment complex from the Met. And it made it so that every night she looked out her window and she could see the illuminated Temple of Dindur across the street. She called it her nightlight, the Isis temple that she personally saved and in one way or another got to New York. And this is not going to be the last time that Jackie gets involved with ISIS, with the goddess Isis. This is incredible. I think we can go to the next slide if you like, Jordan. I mean, just to kind of build on the momentum of the ISIS figure associated. I'm not done. We'll revisit this in greater depth later on. So Jackie's in New York, and she is a book editor in this stage of her life. And I didn't really know too much about it. I guess I kind of had some idea that she was doing something. I did not understand the seminal books, the importance of the books that she was putting out. One of the ones that she was very devoted to and very proud of was Jonathan Cott's Isis and Osiris. Okay. And I've got, I should read it and learn more about her involvement in it. She published over 100, she edited and published and over like 100 different books during her time as an editor. But this is one of the more well-known ones. And I don't think that is a coincidence. I think she very much understood the Isis mythology and in some ways probably associated herself with it. Another book that she was very instrumental in putting out to the public was Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. And I would say this is the cleanest through line to Frazer's The Golden Bough that we have. Frazer is responding to Young, and Young is responding Campbell is responding to Frazer. He's responding to, I'm sorry. It goes Frazer, Young, Campbell. Okay. So she would have been familiar with all these different goddess figures that we talk about from the Golden Bough, at least via Campbell, if she's not already familiar with Young. And she would have had an opportunity to get familiar with Young just because he was part of the atmosphere at the time, but through the Melons. I mean, this is crazy.
The
Now,
more I learn about her, the more impressed I am.
I know. I'm not insinuating that she's like, that Jackie is orchestrating our reality. What I'm trying to say here is that these symbols are descending upon her, consciously or unconsciously.
And she's literate in symbols.
Very literate.
In ways that most people today, and probably even then, were not.
Now, if we go to the next slide, and this blew my mind. Out of all the projects that she worked on, none was stranger in my mind. She was the editor and publisher for Michael Jackson's Moonwalk. Okay, think about the type of material she was putting out. She was putting out great literature, the Isis and Osiris book, Campbell. You know what I should do? Do the Michael Jackson book. I mean, that's quite a portfolio. Not only is she responsible for putting this book out, she writes the foreword for it. It's like a 3-paragraph foreword, and it's largely fluff, but it's cool. And there's a whole story about how this book got put together. She was always pressing Michael Jackson to disclose more intimate details, and he was hesitant to do so. For a long time, the code name for the project was Neil Armstrong. So you couldn't even say what the name of the book was. And this was such a big book. I mean, it was a bestseller forever. But the code name for it was Neil Armstrong. That's how the people in the know knew what they were talking about. And that got me thinking about this a little bit. Like, think about this. So if Jackie is associating herself with Isis, through the Temple of Dindur and other things, okay, then in some ways, I guess that would make Jack Osiris. And then Jackson means son of Jack. And he's the last moonwalker, right? And JFK is the one that gets us so that we have men walking on the moon. And the book's name was Neil Armstrong, the first moonwalker. So there's like a narrative like emerging from here. Not to mention that if he's the son of Jack and he's Osiris, the progeny of Isis and Osiris is Horus. And of course, we have the way that the book is framed here. We have the son of Jack with one eye on the cover of Moonwalk, not unlike how Horus is represented as having a singular eye.
Pretty wild, man. Pretty wild.
I don't think Jackie did this. Maybe I'm not giving her enough credit, but I think these things are just happening, and it's an intrusion into our reality. Because it makes no sense to me. Like, I don't even know why the dance is. I mean, this is not the first time Michael Jackson has come up in the stuff that we looked at. Last time we looked at the World's Fair, and we found that on those fairgrounds, the Louis Armstrong stadium is within the Billie Jean King complex, and the Moonwalk song was to Billie Jean, and Michael Jackson is the king of pop. Like, it's just like this is like syntactical grammar of this simulation. Because
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know.
Now,
What do you guys think?
where would we go from here? And like,
I'm trying to figure it out. Where do I go? I don't know. I guess we'll finish the Golden Bough and I'll keep riffing on it. I don't know. What am I supposed to do?
sometimes I think these celebrities they read some esoteric text, some new age esoteric text, like when they're teenagers, and then they get exposed to these ideas, and then they keep using them. But then they become celebrities, so we keep noticing them. Then we think, oh, maybe what is he trying to say? No, he must have read somewhere at school to do this one eye thing or something. So because I'm just trying to give people. I don't think people have any much more time to read deeply about it. I think they have a surface understanding about these things, like especially Michael Jackson, because he was a very unsubtle guy when it came to symbolism. So I think he was not in on it, kind of, but like people saw him, oh, he's a symbol of that. So why not, like, write him in? Like it's like you see a good bird in the wild, you try to capture it and make it part of your collection or something. Like other people, who knows? I'm just kind of talking crazy things, but hopefully, yeah, it's been too long.
No. Jordan, what do you think?
Where do we go from here? I think it will be revealed one step at a time. Yeah, I don't know. The fractal keeps fractaling. It's super fascinating. She obviously had access to way more than I would have ever guessed a year ago in terms of literature, cultural influences to pull on, mythology. I really didn't understand as a kid why it was important to read classics or study Greek mythology, and it's abundantly clear now how
Mm-hmm.
all of those things get used.
Well, I don't think the people who are reading these things understand what we're talking about here.
Often not.
No, I don't think they'd be like, you cannot do that. If there was like an intelligent person who was steeped in the classics, like watching this, they'd be like, how dare you? You can't, you can't talk about mythology and religion this way.
Maybe, but the more you learn the history of these authors, they thought a lot of this stuff was real in a way that is not presented in English class.
And Michael Jackson might make a reappearance here on our timeline in a way, like a lot of the Epstein file stuff. The A lot of people are saying, "See, he's exonerated." We'll. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that comes back up. Um, we've got 7 minutes. Let's see how far we can get in 7 minutes.
I think your clock is behind my clock, but
Oh, okay. No. We can stop there. Would you like to stop here?
we could do one more slide unless it's gonna cachet into.
Let's do one more slide.
Okay.
All right. I'll be quick about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, a
So,
magic circle.
yeah. So this is the Arlington Cemetery gravesite. This is a model of it. I probably should have included a real one. But what's interesting about this, two things from the Attis perspective, how he gets transformed into a pine tree. It was a great priority to make sure that there are pine trees all over this gravesite. So that checks that box if we're looking for a parallel with the Attis story. What was so fascinating to me that I did not realize is that not only did Bunny Mellon do the rose garden, she actually designed the gravesite for JFK as well. So I guess this is just me a Bunny Mellon appreciation post for her genius and all that she's done. I guess the only other thing I would say here is, and I don't know if I buy this, I've other aerial views of the gravesite. Many of the QAnon people say that it is a Q, and that this is part of the QAnon mythology connecting back to JFK. Ostick doesn't like it. I understand whether or not the
It
QAnon
looks like
stuff
a
is.
flask that you're
It
talking
looks like
about.
a lot of things, but
It
I
does
guess
look like the alchemy flasks we've been looking at
I'm just
a
saying
little
whether the
bit.
QAnon stuff is real or not. It's a mythology. It's an emergent mythology, much like these other mythologies emerged. And I think we can fairly assess it using similar lenses. But yeah, that's all. I don't think that Bunny Mellon is part of the Q team. I'm not saying that. But I do think it wouldn't surprise me if there was a knowledge of Attis and the intention to put pine trees there that motivated her. But I don't know for certain. Only she knows. And I don't have access to her notes or anything.
What could be the etymology of Arlington? Like, why Arlington? I'm
Well,
just
I
looking it
mean,
up.
that's where it is one of our major military cemeteries, and JFK was in the Navy. So there's that. But yeah, it's great. I'll look into that. I think Ostick's frozen.
No, no, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
he's
here.
back.
I was looking at the meaning of Arlington.
What
I
is
was
it?
thinking about it in terms of no. I came back when you said I was
Oh,
frozen.
okay.
So I was thinking about the actor Alice Howard, who was playing cowboy. So I thought maybe it could be related to someone called Arliss. So I thought, okay, yeah, because he
It
gets
means
killed, and after him getting killed, everyone gets motivated to storm the Vietnam, whatever.
Earlstown or noble settlement. That's what Arlington means. So that's
That's
all. I think we
interesting.
should stop. I think we should stop there so we don't make Jordan late for her next commitment. Jordan, you want the last word?
It was great as always. I really enjoyed this, especially the deeper insights into the JFK Memorial, of which I've been to many times, but somehow could not put together the Christ connection. And
Yeah.
all of this in hindsight is so obvious, but it is an inner alchemical journey, I will say, to be able to develop the eyes to see it all. So thank you both for helping me to decode reality at deeper and deeper levels than I think I ever would have just on my own.
Yeah. Glad to have you here. All right, Ostick, have a good week, man.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.